Super excited to join all of you here at STSC. My name is Parker Ence. I'm the CEO of a data company called Veraset, and really super happy to be joined by Keith Chen today. He's a professor of behavioral economics at UCLA Anderson. So our goal in this session is to really talk about how location data can be a powerful resource for driving positive change, not only in business, but also across civics and across healthcare and other applications. So Keith's gonna, in just a minute, walk us through some of his recent research showing ways that he's used location data to discover ways to improve the voting experience here in the United States, and also to protect nursing home residents. And then I'll walk you through some commercial applications. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give you just some brief context on Veraset in case you're not familiar. So Veraset's a data as a service company. We were founded on the idea that location data, first of all, there's more of it now than ever. And second, it's this powerful resource for understanding how life is happening in space and time, and what we can understand, we can change and improve. And so we've positioned ourselves to be a source of data for those that don't have access to the big data, the location data required to understand how the world is working and how populations are moving. And that's important because a lot of the data today is siloed within very large companies, Apple, Google, Facebook, etc. And so if you're an innovator trying to do something interesting with location data, it's not always easy to get access to the volume and quality of data that you need to drive that kind of analysis. And so what we see is the two most popular data sets when it comes to third-party location data. The first is what we call movement data, which is very raw latitude, longitude, timestamp GPS observations. And then the second is what we call visits, which would be pairing those raw GPS observations to some kind of point of interest visit. So we see those as the most popular. And at this point, we see data scientists across all different industries using these kinds of data sets to enrich what they already have access to in their first-party data. The teams that we typically tend to work with are data science product or analyst teams that have some first-party data but need enrichment from a third-party data source. And then they also tend to be super interested in building their own proprietary models. So they're not as interested in taking in a turnkey solution or source, but they really want to get into the granular data and build their own model and their own structure. So we go out and get this location data from many sources. Our primary source is anonymized devices. We clean that data and we deliver it to our users, who then use that data in their analysis. Of course, this is sensitive data, and so data privacy and security is paramount. And so we take a number of approaches to make sure that the data is safe and easy to use for those that need to use it. So with that, I'm happy to introduce Keith. So Keith is professor of behavioral economics at UCLA Anderson School of Management. He's spent time at Stanford, Harvard, Yale, and now is at UCLA. One of Keith's claim to fame is that he designed the surge pricing model for Uber, which on the one hand is kind of a bummer for everybody that uses Uber, but on the other hand, it's not a bummer because you can get an Uber at difficult times. So I'm glad that he did that. And he's also a board of reviewing editors for Science magazine. So with that, Keith, please show us how you've been using this data to drive interesting findings across your work.
Thanks, Parker. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to tell you, I just want to dive right in and save everybody's time. I'm going to tell you about two exciting projects that co-authors and collaborators across Yale, UCLA, and the University of Chicago have been doing using Veraset's kind of movement data for the two things I'm going to show you are attempts that we've made to solve major problems in our world, just with society in general. One is kind of voting rights, and the second is COVID-19. And in both instances, I'm going to show you ways that movement data have been able to crack open these problems in ways that have not been available to the CDC, to governments, to local state voting authorities, to anybody prior to being able to leverage this data. Let's dive in. Let me show you. All right, so just like one quick overview of what we're going to be doing here for those who are thinking about kind of these data in GIS. We're going to be taking the movement data set. So think about this as just kind of billions and billions of rows, 2 terabytes of data a day. And it's just all anonymized smartphone location data. From the point of view of computational social science and computational civics, which I'll be showing you today, that's most powerful when it can be linked with kind of, for example, imputed demographics or imputed network measures that you bring from other data sources to this. And this is what Parker was talking about creating custom models. This is going to be a great example of taking that movement data and in some sense, like exponentially scaling up its power by linking it in very simple ways, very simple GIS kind of method ways with other important and powerful social science data sets, many of which are kind of public. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the results I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that Veraset movement data lets you establish for the very first time in kind of both political science and kind of voting rights histories, some basic results like what fraction of Americans have to wait more than 30 minutes when they go to a polling station on election day. I'm going to show you that African Americans are 74% more likely than any other kind of voting demographic to have to wait more than that 30 minutes. I'm going to show you interesting things that say like this actually doesn't fall along partisan lines. This is a feature of both democratically controlled and Republican controlled kind of voting precincts, unfortunately. And we can do a little bit of diagnostics as to what might lead to this racial disparity. The other thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to tell you this interesting thing. Early on in the COVID-19 epidemic, for example, in the state that I was living at the time, Connecticut, 70% of deaths in the first year of COVID-19 in Connecticut were in nursing homes, and nationwide it's more than 40%. So why is that? Was the question we were asking. It's obviously that nursing home residents are a very vulnerable population, but interestingly, very early on in the pandemic, the United States CMS issued guidance that basically shut all nursing homes in the United States down to visitors, despite no visitation policies. You can only see grandma through the glass. Nursing home deaths to COVID-19 continue to skyrocket. We're going to show that kind of shared staff appeared to be the culprit in that. Okay, let's dive in. All right, the first slide is going to show you, Parker, sorry, can you see the location of 2016 polling places? So this just tells you like why this is a problem that can only be attacked by this kind of data. There are over 100,000 and approaching 200,000 polling places in the United States. Okay, the grayed out areas are places that primarily vote by mail. Let me give you an example. This next slide is a map of Stanford University, and thanks to kind of a number of different data sources, what we're going to show you is just the rooftops of all of the polling places, all of the places you could have voted in the 2016 election near Stanford University. Zooming in on one. This is Stanford West Apartment, 700 Clark Way. We're just going to use, obviously, satellite images to kind of create a geofence of the roof of that polling place. This is what it looks like on a Tuesday, 1 week before Election Day. And what I'm just showing you is the pings that you see in roughly kind of like 15 minutes to an hour around that place. You see a few pings, light blue, that are in the building, and a bunch of like pink pings that are walking around. Now let's show you what it looks like on Election Day. All right. And basically what I'm showing you is the fundamental data problem, which is that pink line in front of the building. We're going to use some basic regression analysis and some basic machine learning to tell you that's a queue. That's a line that's formed in front of the voting. Now, just one kind of point here, which I think is interesting. You might worry about the representativeness of kind of data. We've done a bunch of projects that show that this is actually very representative data. But something that's kind of cool is suppose we only sampled for some bizarre reason, women who are taller than 5'5". Okay, like, something of an unrepresentative sample. That doesn't matter as long as they're not systematically jumping the line. By watching how long their smartphones spend in line in front of this polling place, we can estimate, like at the time when we observe them, how long it takes people to vote at that polling place. Okay. Now, let me show you, get to the punchline here. What we do then is we basically like zoom in on 2016 and we measure over 100,000 voting polling places and voting lines in the United States in that election. Okay. That's 100x more than has ever been possible with previous studies. Previously, like political scientists would send people to the front doors with like, stopwatches and stuff. And what we're going to tell you is that I'm showing you just basically the distributions of waiting times for the lowest fraction, the lowest decile and the highest decile of polling places when ranked by what fraction of the people who are supposed to vote here are African American. Okay, and what you see is a huge racial disparity. Basically, African Americans are more than 70% more likely to have to wait more than 30 minutes, and you just basically see they've just got a long tail of very, very big voting waiting times. Okay, numerous places have implemented kind of controls based on that. We've kind of been testifying in a number of lawsuits. Stacey Abrams has really kind of glommed onto this data. It's been very, very high impact, and again, something you can't do except with data like this. Okay, let me tell you about COVID-19. Sorry, I'm speaking so quickly. Like I said, we're going to try and understand COVID-19 in nursing homes. Now, here's the puzzle. How did COVID-19 kill so many nursing home residents in the United States? Nationwide, it's about 38% of deaths from COVID-19 occurred in nursing homes. And in 3 states, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, it was more than 70% of deaths in those states. Most recently, in the most recent wave, most of the deaths in Florida were in nursing homes. Now, this is really puzzling because we locked down nursing homes, okay? Well, if you lock down nursing homes, so the only people who can come in and out of nursing homes are staff, then you're immediately led to the hypothesis that it's staff who are bringing this in. But like staff were some of the first to be eligible for vaccines, although convincing them to take them has been a little bit. And also staff have been prioritized with respect to PPE since early on in the pandemic. Interesting thing, okay? And next slide, Parker. Let me show you guys this. What we're going to do with our data is we're going to basically do the same trick that we did with voting stations, but we're going to identify every nursing home in the United States, so more than 10,000 nursing homes, okay? We're going to draw out their polygons, and we're basically going to say, after the lockdown, all right, after the time when nationwide it was illegal for anybody to enter a nursing home unless they were staff, okay? Let's look at all smartphones that ever enter nursing homes. All right. Now, typical places data will show you something like that. But what we're going to tell you is not just which nursing homes take in smartphones, but which nursing homes, what other nursing homes those smartphones visit. We're then going to apply some network theory. So we're going to do some stuff like measure degree, just like how many other nursing homes is your nursing home connected to, strength, how many workers do you share with that other nursing home? And then we're going to do some very fancy stuff. For some of you who know linear algebra, eigenvector centrality, we're going to measure in some sense like the adjacency matrix, like every row and every column is a nursing home. Ones if your nursing homes share workers, zeros if they don't. What's the primary eigenvalue of that matrix? Now, I know that sounds a little bit fancy, but basically what that eigenvector brilliantly shows you, what the interpretation of that eigenvector is, if you were to just start at one nursing home and then do a random walk by jumping from nursing home to nursing home across shared worker links, in the long run, what fraction of your time would you spend? And unfortunately, in this thought experiment, your COVID-19, would you spend in this particular nursing home? That's the eigenvector value of that nursing home. Okay, next slide. Just to dive in and show you kind of interesting things that pop out here. Remember, the CDC nor no state regulators actually require nursing homes to report or even know which other nursing homes they share staff with. Okay, we know that, okay? And some things that pop out, for example, are nursing homes that these data tell you are very connected. If you look on Google Street View, share co-ownership, which again, the federal government does not know, like which nursing homes are co-owned with other nursing homes. Okay, skipping forward, I won't go through the regression tables, but bottom line, we do 2 things. We show that more connected nursing homes, okay, have much higher COVID-19 outbreaks. That's true in the cross section. The connections between nursing homes by shared staff predict COVID outbreaks in the time series, meaning if nursing home X gets infected, the next nursing home you're going to see with an infection is nursing homes that share staff with that other nursing home. Okay. And then we can do counterfactual simulation. Several provinces in Canada actually raised funds early on in the pandemic and said, listen, we're just shutting this down. Okay, every nursing home worker, you have to choose a nursing home, and we're going to make up your lost wages from the nursing homes that we're forcing you not to work at anymore. Okay, what we show is that if you had done a similar policy like that to the United States, you would have reduced COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes by 49%. And remember, that's in some states, 70% of deaths from COVID-19 are in nursing homes. So to be able to reduce that by over half is like shocking. 20% fewer deaths in the United States by COVID-19. That's like hundreds of thousands of lives saved. 8 states, 10 counties, numerous kinds of places are now using this map that we've generated using kind of Veraset's data as an early warning system. Like if we see a COVID outbreak in this nursing home, which other nursing homes do we immediately flood with PPE / kind of like CDC workers? All right, those are instances of using these data to change the world, which hopefully this is the right audience to say, like, go and do it, man.
Thanks a lot, Keith. Really appreciate it. Love all the work that you're doing. In just a second, we'll take a couple of questions, but I just wanted to just briefly give you a couple other examples for how this data is used in a more commercial setting to change the world from a slightly different angle. One example is using the data to predict trends for autonomous vehicles. This is research that KPMG did to try to kind of look forward and imagine what might autonomous vehicles look like based on mobility patterns in large cities and other kind of like populated areas, and how cars, autonomous vehicles might move in those areas. Another example is tying point of sale loyalty data in a regional convenience store, really a shopping center, to location data, understanding how do people visit our store, how do they visit other stores, and applying those kinds of analyses to better understand and serve customers better. And then last example is, of course, lots of opportunities to personalize advertising in a way that can help people find the kinds of things that they might be interested in, and measuring the effect of those advertisements over time. So we see all kinds of amazing ways to understand and better and make the world better across all kinds of industries, both private sector and public sector, and are super excited about the way that this data continues to fuel that ability. I would just say if you're interested in getting a sample of the movement data or the visits data, or if you'd like to review our white paper around how to create visits using machine learning, then please just either shoot myself an email or hello@veraset.com. So with that, we've got 1 or 2 minutes to take a few questions about the topics that we've covered here today. So Elena, I'm not sure if we have any questions, but happy to take those now.
We absolutely do have quite a few questions. Thank you, Parker and Keith. You touched on quite a few use cases that people could use mobility data for, and you really went in depth into the methodology for how they could leverage it. So really appreciate that. A lot of compliments. Very cool, very good talk. So really awesome. To start off, this question is for Keith. What are common challenges in dealing with billions of rows of GPS data, and how did you solve them?
I mean, I think the most common challenge is just computational, right? So, you know, the suggestion I would make with respect to that is, you know, whenever you have a particular question, kind of like, you know, the subset of pings that visit some particular like set of locations, for example, nursing homes or polling places on some particular day, like filtering the data down to those as quickly as possible, like really ameliorates kind of computational challenges, right? Like very few kind of people have access to servers with like 20 terabytes of RAM, you know, so to get it to be able something that can run on a very short kind of thing. You know, in our lab, we kind of very quickly form like Geo7, kind of a Geo7 cover of the areas that we care. And then, like, you know, Geo7 filters are very quick. And then like, you know, polygonal kind of filtering from there as a second stage.
Okay, so it sounds like you can help yourself out a lot in the pre-processing part kind of these analyses.
Yeah.
Awesome. And most of our users are using tools like Databricks or other kind of like, you know, tools designed for very large data sets before they're visualizing them in something like, you know, Carta or Esri or something like that.
Exactly. This seems to be for you, Parker. How does the data evaluation process work if you're interested in using the Veraset data sets?
Yeah, I mean, we have data samples, so just reach out. We can get a data sample, and I think, you know, either the data is useful for your use case or it's not. So just have to look in the data and see.
Exactly. And you guys did provide your contact information. So anyone interested in the data, please reach out to Parker for further information. I think we have time for one more. This one's a little bit long, so bear with me. But we're seeing a lot of folks in the retail space debate whether they should focus more on brick and mortar efforts or direct to consumer in order to diversify revenue. It might be more obvious how this data could be leveraged for brick and mortar strategy, but how could it be leveraged to inform direct to consumer strategy?
Yeah, super interesting. There's definitely a lot of changes with kind of the ad tech data ecosystem. Apple and Google are certainly making a lot of changes that sort of govern how data can be used. We've always taken that consent and privacy very seriously, and so we continue to adapt to those changes. But I would say, like a super like basic ad tech use case would be to kind of tie data together across both online and offline behavior and kind of build an anonymized profile and serve up kind of advertising or even products based on the activity that's both online and offline. I think that's it's changing. It's not maybe as easy to do as it used to be, and that's probably a good thing for consumers. I certainly think the data can help, even if it's just with lookalike audiences, to kind of understand offline behavior and then map that to like a direct consumer application.
Awesome. Anything to add on that one, Keith?
I mean, again, all of these changes have to occur with under the blanket of like you still want anonymization. One of the fields that's in the Veraset data set is IP addresses, and so like you can create pretty good models of like some particular kind of online behavior, like what kind of offline behavior that maps onto, and then that can be very, very powerful.
Absolutely. So I think that's all the time we have for questions, but it looks like